For me, I get super frustrated if I'm not learning something, whether it's through reading or staff. Like if we're in a staff meeting and somebody can't bring me something that I've never heard before or a new idea, kind of like I just want to learn every single day. So whether it's a new play, whether it's a new concept offensively or defensively, whether it's a new pregame speech, again, remember, Brendan, how Chuck used to talk about how many meetings we have with our team? Every timeout was a meeting. Pregame was a meeting. Halftime was a meeting. So for me, I want to have a different creative message every time we have a meeting. So how do you do that? You gotta actively search it out.
Hey, welcome to another Coaching You podcast with the Coach Brendan Suhr, presented by Noah Basketball. Zach and I today are going to speak to one of our very best friends in basketball, the great Eric Musselman, the head coach of the USC Fighting Trojans. Let me tell you, Coach Muss and I go all the way back to the CBA, work together with the Orlando Magic. He's absolutely an incredible coach, one of the very best there is at the college level. He's a great NBA coach, both as an assistant, but more importantly, as a head coach at Golden State and the Sacramento Kings, coached in the D League, which is now called the G League, with the Lakers G League team. So Muss is a coach that is, he's done the whole deal. And I think he's one of the most knowledgeable people, one of the most entertaining people. And I think you're going to enjoy the hell out of our discussion today because we'll take you back in time. We'll show a lot of recognition to the great Hubie Brown, who we both have worked with, Chuck Daly, who we both worked for, Mike Fratello, who we both worked with. I just think you're going to really enjoy it. It's a really a treat for those coaches that, whether you're coaching high school, college, or pro, you're going to enjoy, and you'll see the substance of Muss and the knowledge that he has and the relationships. This guy has the entire package. That's why he's one of the top coaches in all college basketball today. So after a quick timeout from our partners, we'll be right back with Eric Musselman. Noah Basketball is our new presenting sponsor of our Coaching You podcast. Noah Basketball is a shot tracking and data company that has helped change how coaches and players perfect the game's most important skill, shooting. Noah is a data service provider that uses machine learning and the latest computer vision technology to provide real-time data and feedback to improve shooting accuracy and consistency for professional and amateur basketball players. Noah has now analyzed over 570 million shots from countless high school, hundreds of college teams, and 28 NBA franchises. The technology is simply amazing. Once the system has been installed, players will be able to get immediate feedback on their shooting arc, left and right positioning, depth, makes or misses, and makes the data available to players and coaches on your mobile device. For more information about how Noah can help your team, visit noahbasketball.com. Coaches, are you looking to take your game preparation to the next level? Then Fast Model Sports is the perfect coaching software for you. With FastDraw, build an organized library of plays and drills and create professional playbooks to share with your players and staff. You can also download over 9,500 free plays and drills from our Playbank directly to your FastDraw account. Looking for a better way to build your scouting reports and want to include video? With FastScout, build custom scouting report templates to prepare your team best for each individual opponent. Plus, did you know with the latest updates from Fast Model Sports, you can now include video with your Fast Scout reports and share with your coaches and staff all within the Fast Scout mobile app. The combination of Fast Draw and Fast Scout is by far the best way for you and your coaches to create winning game strategies and effectively communicate them to your team. Over 10,000 high school and youth coaches trust Fast Model Sports products to help their teams reach their goals. To order, Go to fastmodelsports.com. Use code COACHINGU15 to get 15% off any Fast Draw or Fast Scout products. Remember, go to fastmodelsports.com. Use code COACHINGU15 to get 15% off any Fast Draw and Fast Scout products. So excited today to have one of our dearest friends from Zach and mine, a guy that I worked with a long time ago, 30 years ago, with the Orlando Magic, with the great Chuck Daly, my dearest friend in coaching, Eric Musselman. How are you, Mus?
I'm doing great, Coach. Appreciate you having me on.
The last time, your driver today is one of the great drivers in America, and I can remember when we were with the Magic. I don't even want to say how old he was or anything like that, but I saw him with no clothes on as we were showering outside after your workouts with him. Okay, I think he might have been 2 at the time, but it's great to have Michael as your chauffeur today as you're going recruiting. And I appreciate you taking the time today. We saw last Sunday the great Hubie Brown, who means so much to both of us, doing his last game on ESPN, ABC actually. And it was really cool because they sent in the first string. They, sent in Mike Breen in and stuff like that. I don't know if you got to see the whole thing, but it was as well done a broadcast as I've ever seen, with the way they, showed attention to him and really, really praised him for everything he's meant to the game.
No, it was a super cool tribute. And you think about, there's so many basketball fans that don't even remember Coach Brown as a coach, because he's been such a legendary broadcaster and has educated so many people on the game. But you know better than anyone, Coach, what Hubie meant as a coach, having played for him and worked for him. And I got a chance to work with him with an all-star team that we took to Limoges, France. And it was literally the greatest coaching experience that I ever could have asked for, to learn, and just an incredible X and O coach. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone from strictly X and O's and then explaining what he wanted from a teaching standpoint. There's not many people in the history of the game that could, or any sport, that could simply teach technique and break it down like Coach Brown.
The cool thing, after playing for him my sophomore year of high school, he then went to college my junior year. And 1 year with me was enough to turn him to become a college coach. And then, in the summer, though, back then, I think he went to William & Mary for $6,000. Talk about making a career upgrade, right? $6,000, took like a $10,000 pay cut from high school. But in the summer, to supplement his income, he was able to, they allowed you to go and do clinics, high school camps and things like that. So when he would come up to Jersey and Pennsylvania, I would go and be his demonstrator at his lectures. He would go make $100, right, for a lecture. Hubie Brown making $100, busting his ass, teaching in the hot sun, and he's doing it, and I'm out there demonstrating. I don't even care if I got a cheeseburger out of it. It didn't matter. I was just learning from the guy, and we did this for like 3 or 4 years, and it was incredible. And and then when I finished college, literally from all the basketball that he exposed me to and all the camps that I'd worked, 8-10 weeks of camp a summer, I immediately became a college coach. So it was such a different time now. I thought your dad, Bill, who is an unbelievable coach and a dear friend of mine, I thought those two coached in a very similar style and actually ran a couple of the same sets, which is incredible in itself. But talk about that, the influence with your dad and him.
Yeah, I always thought that my dad, Brendan, looked up to Coach Brown. I think because of the background of working his way up, being a college coach, then going to the NBA. And you're right, that Hawk series, the 50 series, my dad ran the death out of that thing. And that was actually, when we were with the Timberwolves, that was our bread and butter play. And obviously the Hawks series came from when he coached in Atlanta. But yeah, I think you're right. Both of their personalities, very demanding, a lot of accountability, super, super intense, tough-minded. But both coaches kind of way ahead of their time, maybe in different ways. I know with my father's, marketing was a little bit ahead of the time, and with Coach Brown, I remember, I'm going to revert back to that time that I worked with him. It was my job to pick the players because he was coaching a bunch of minor league players from the CBA.
Right.
And each position, he didn't tell me what players to pick, but he gave me the exact characteristics of what he wanted. Like he was so demanding that he wanted a small forward that was a great rebounder. And I kept asking him why, and he said, Bernard King, Dominique Wilkins, that's what I'm used to. I want a small forward that can out-rebound every small forward. And he would do that with every position. He knew exactly what he wanted.
When I went to the Hawks 79-80, which was Bird and Magic's first year, Mike Fratello was the other assistant, only 2 assistants, but I also was in charge of the entire college draft. We had no scouts. We had AGM, but no one to work under him. And I had to also do the advanced scouting back then because we didn't have anything other than 1/2-inch VHSs, right? There was nothing like that. We watched the whole damn game, And so now and back then it was like the CBA. We had 10 rounds in the NBA draft back then, 10 rounds. And so can you imagine? And like some teams, Boston would pick people from Brandeis University, all the schools near Boston, because they just were doing it to pick friends. Not Hubie. Shit, I had to know everyone. And then I'd say, tell me about him. It's the 9th round, Hubie had, and then it was like that, detailed and amazing. And I always, and Fratello was such a great help because Mike had already worked for him for a couple of years. And I never forget this, and I think I've told you this, is that our first summer league practice, we didn't have summer league. We just had, I don't know, after we drafted guys. I don't think we had a league to play in. We just had something to work the guys out. And we had it, and they had just won the Central Division Championship, won 50 games. And I go in there's 2,500 people filling in an arena to watch our summer team practice. And Hubie is coaching the team, not Fratello. I couldn't because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I am petrified. I am so scared because this is my high school guy that I was scared every time he yelled at me or yelled at anyone. He was that intimidating. And he can see that I am scared shit as we're ready to start practice. And he comes and says, hey, come on over here. He looks and I am ready to cry. And he says, hey, just relax. Don't try to be me. You're good enough as yourself. Don't worry about it. And, it was the best advice ever. But, that's how imposing he was. The best clinician, Eric, I think I've ever seen in basketball, teaching,
Ever. When he was with the Grizzlies, it was basically like an open coaching clinic. I went to the practice thinking that maybe I was going to be the only other coach just observing. There was like 50 coaches, and he was actually teaching the Grizzly players and team the scheme, but he also took the time to look up to the coaches section and explain why he was putting the stuff in. It was, and the NBA players were sitting there listening while he was teaching the coaches. No better clinician. And I'm going to keep reverting little bits and pieces about going to Limoges, France with him. It would be halftime of a game and we would be playing bad. And he would look at like a Darren Morningstar, our center, and he would go, hey, you realize by the way you're playing, you're driving my market value on my European clinics down. I need you to bring the value up.
Oh, when my first year there in Atlanta, you know how you have your fall camp. Back then, Eric, we had 28 days of NBA camp, you know, of which you'd play 8 exhibition games. And all of a sudden, I have no idea what we're doing. I have no idea the rules of the NBA, nothing. All of a sudden, he says to Fratello, he says to me, because Mike knows, he says, hey, I'm doing a clinic on Friday and Saturday at practice. And I'm like listening. I don't say anything. And next thing you know, he's running a medalist, which was a big group back then, you know, Al McGuire's company. He's running a coaching clinic for medalists. They call it a one-man clinic. It's Hubie Brown. And for 2 days, he is lecturing. We have 250 coaches in there, and he is, with a microphone, running our practice, teaching, and doing the same thing, just like you said. And he made the guys do double sessions because he had to fill up the time to teach. And I'm saying, he was so far ahead. And I said to myself as I'm watching, I could never do a clinic. This guy is so good. I was so intimidated by him. It was just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And you worked with Mike Fratello in Memphis, who was the best man at my wedding and stuff, and a great coach. He took Hubie's place, right?
Yes. Yep. So Coach Fratello and I both came in the same day when Coach Brown retired. And it's really amazing to me, Brendan, that when you think about Jerry West, who's a former player, very pro player, but then the coaches that he hired, Hubie Brown, had been out of coaching for quite some time. He hired him. Then when he was replacing Hubie, Coach Fratello had been out for 7 years, and he hired Mike. So 2 of the greatest X and O coaches that I've ever been around, both of them. And Coach Fratello, attention to detail, detail-oriented, like post-trapping. I don't think I've ever seen a coach be more detailed on post-trapping than Mike Fratello. It was absolutely incredible. His detail, where he wanted his hand placement, where the feet come together with the trap man. Just an incredible defensive coach.
We were the first team in the NBA to trap in the post in Atlanta with Mike.
Wow.
Yeah. And then if you remember later on, Mike went to Cleveland, and his biggest player was Danny Ferry, you know, who was a small forward, really 6'7", 8. And Mike trapped every pass to the post. And, you know, after a while, you said, we're not going to throw it to the post because it'll be a turnover. So, you know, but that's how good a teacher and coach. For a guy that won 600-plus games, he doesn't get any of the credit that he deserves in coaching, in my opinion.
No, I think about all the great coaches I've been around, and like from a teacher standpoint, delivery, I thought in timeouts, he was so detailed. His diagramming in timeouts was so clear, so concise. His delivery to the players individually in the timeouts was so good. You know, like in my opinion, any great coach, just a fierce competitor.
Yeah. Let's go to our other friend, the great Chuck Daly, who you got to work with in Orlando, and he loved you to death. And you and I were the dinosaurs in the room. Chuck would keep saying, you know, we're all dinosaurs, the 3 of us, you know, we're going to be extinct soon. And I didn't get it. You didn't get it. Chuck knew, though. He knew. But, you know, one of the things about Chuck that was so amazing, you know, and you could probably do 50 stories on Chuck. What did you get away from him as far as the whole package of Chuck? Because I think he, besides he was a terrific coach, but the other stuff was so amazing, I thought.
I mean, I just thought it was just the greatest CEO that you could ever be around. You know, because really with that Orlando Magic team, really, Brendan, I was shocked at first because you did, so much of the coaching and so much of the teaching. And once I got comfortable around Coach Daly, I asked him, like, Brendan's doing all the coaching, man. Like, and he's like, I got him in the game. Like I want him to hear my voice in the game.
Yeah.
And I thought he really wanted the assistant coaches to coach. I did, like he was so particular on not over talking so that it was like E.F. Hutton when he spoke, it meant something. And the way that he, like he would be in a meeting and talk about the players in one way, and we would walk down those steps and he would be hugging the guy that he was just complaining about for the last 40 minutes. And the players never knew how he did such a great job of kind of masquerading, his true feelings and just little things like subbing a player out that could be mad if he came out, like subbing the guy out in a timeout rather than subbing the player out while it was live play. And the player would have to walk by the bench, and he thought about that stuff in real time. Like, I'm going to wait, call a timeout, diagram a play for the player. And then when the guy leaves the huddle, tell him, oh, hey, by the way, you're subbed out, but the guy thought the play was going to be diagrammed for him. And, now the player, like Mad Max, wasn't going to get mad at him, you know? So, I mean, just a genius in all those little things. And I remember, Coach, you and I talking about how he could predict the future.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And I've never been around a coach that knew all the tendencies of the referees. Who you got a good whistle with on the road? Who you might not, be able to play as physical with when they were reffing the game. I mean, he had the referee tendencies down like a coach would have player tendencies down on the opposing team.
Literally, in our pregame meeting, scouting report on the officials.
Every
hey,
game, 82 nights.
we got Eddie Rush. Don't say shit to him tonight, okay? Jack Madden, he's going to let us play. Relax. Jake O'Donnell, he'll let you kill each other, okay? And here comes Bob Delaney. No problem. Let's go. Here's a New Jersey State Trooper. He's going to let you beat their ass, And so he loved that. And but he was right on. Saved our guys a lot of technical fouls and appropriately, But I'm going to tell a story that happened to you and I that no one ever has heard except you and I, because we lived it. Chuck unexpectedly walks out and quits the Magic after we have a great season. Quits abruptly. Doesn't tell you, me, he quits. Doesn't even tell his wife he quits.
Coach, sir, I was in the weight room when he walked in the building and he goes, hey, how long are you going to be here? I said 10 minutes. He goes, all right, I'll be back down in 5 minutes. I didn't know what he was talking about, but you can keep going with the story because I even remember where I was.
Yeah, I'm in my office and he walks in and says, hey, I'm out of here. And I said, okay, I thought he was going to play golf. And so anyway, he goes and quits. We're like, what the hell just happened to you and I? I mean, we're now out of work. A week and a half later, 2 weeks later, he takes us out to our favorite place in Orlando, Del Frisco's at the time, steakhouse, now called Christner's because that's the family that owns it. And we're having a private dining room meeting, everything you can eat. And all of a sudden he says to us, it's like almost at a wake, right? And so we're having this great dinner and he says, oh, by the way, Shaq came to my house yesterday because they lived in the same subdivision. And we both looked at him, didn't say anything. He said he offered me the job to coach the Lakers. And I turned him down. And you and I almost put a knife in him at the time. Yeah. I said, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? He loved L.A. He loved Rodeo Drive. And now he's going to coach Shaq, Kobe, and we're sitting there unemployed, the two of us. You love the West Coast, and I'm like in tears with a filet mignon and a lobster and everything. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, yeah. I told him I don't want it. And Riley had sent him, or Jerry West had sent him. I'm sorry. Jerry West had sent him to ask him. Another Jerry West hire that he knew that was the guy. And I said, well, call him back. Call him back. Nah. I said, Chuck, we can help you. We're not going to have to coach that much with those guys. Trust me, you know. And so he turns him down. And who goes there? Phil Jackson.
Yep.
Phil Jackson.
I thought, really, Coach, I thought when he said that, I'm like, all right, there's one guy in the world. His name's Brendan Suhr. He can get Chuck to accept this job. I still left that dinner thinking, nah, there's a chance the three of us are going to go to the Lakers.
I told him, I said, I got 2 kids, man. I got no job. I mean, what are we going to do? He's got like $20 million sitting in a safe in his house, you know? I mean, I'm like, not in the bank, in his house, right? I'm saying, but that was, I mean, no one knows that story. No, but that is a true story. Shaquille will verify it. And Jerry West, God bless, and Chuck, it was a true story. And can you imagine what would have happened if Chuck went to the Lakers? Incredible.
And how about our lives too, not just Chuck's?
Yeah. 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 No.
Well,
all right, that was a good podcast. Now I'm depressed.
Well, Brendan, what the story I thought you were going to tell is when the day that he resigned from the Magic, he called us all up into his office.
Yep.
And he went around the room to each coach to tell us the future. You know, and he said, like, Brendan, I told them to hire you as the head coach.
Right.
I don't know if they will, but I told them. He went to Tree Rollins. He went to Tom Sterner. And then he got to me and he goes, and you're completely effed. You're out of here. You're too young, and good luck, Musselman.
I do remember that. Yeah. I said, shit, I went through that in New Jersey. He recommended me there, too. And a guy that wasn't, we have Paul Silas, Rick Carlisle, and myself on the staff. He recommends me. And Willis Reed hires Butch Beard, who wasn't even anywhere in there. He's coaching Howard University. Damn. Like, come on, man. So, your time at Arkansas, incredible what you had going there, what you did. Phenomenal job. When do you know it's time to go? I think it's really a hard thing in coaching.
It really is. I think, not only myself, but my 2 sons, my daughter, my wife, everybody really liked living in Fayetteville. And we knew it was a great job. Like, from a basketball job in college basketball, the University of Arkansas is not a good job. It's an absolutely phenomenal job. We got lifetime friends, like the Hunt family. I still text with Brian Hunt almost daily.
Wow.
And my wife, she was really making a big impact statewide. And she was enjoying all of her, cancer fight stuff that she was doing statewide. My daughter actually has a whole group of friends flying in this weekend from Fayetteville.
Wow.
But what happened was 3 really good years. The last year, we didn't have the season that we wanted. But then the job opens up at USC. And I think really growing up in San Diego, from a college standpoint, it was always like, do you ever get the chance to coach at UCLA or USC?
Yep.
And obviously if it was the pro game, it was, could you ever work for the Lakers or Clippers? Well, I had already done the Lakers G League team, had worked for the Clippers. And so this was just an opportunity that was perfect for me at the stage of my career. The more conversations we had with the athletic director, Jen Cohen, the more comfortable and excited we all became. I'll tell you, Brendan, it's the first time I've ever had an interview where the athletic director, Jen, asked if my wife, Danielle, could be on the first 45 minutes of the interview.
Whoa.
And super unique. So Danielle and I sat next to each other, and that was 45 minutes of our first interview. And she wanted to get to know my wife, and then she asked Danielle to, just let her and I talk. So that like when that happened, it was brilliant, and it was like, you know what, this is who I want to work for. And we're super excited. LA's a different market. There's it's could not be different from Fayetteville in every which way, from the living to the commute to work. We have to build up our fan base. The Arkansas fan base, if you win and you get out in the community, you're going to have 20,000 every night. So there's, so but we're like, this is a perfect spot for me, and for our family. And
that's great.
I think we're building something really special too.
And congrats on one thing I forgot to ask you, I think it's okay since you signed him. One of your recruits I saw on his dad's podcast recently, a player that you coached at Golden State. Are we allowed to discuss recruits or no?
Not right now, but we are excited.
No, I just want to make sure. That's why I asked. Okay. I was excited about that. So that's good. Thank you. Yeah, we don't want to do anything to get you in trouble, but he's a terrific player. His dad was pretty damn good too. You made him faster, his dad. Yeah. But one of the things that's been only sad thing about LA is the recent tragedy of the fires out there. And I know we talked during that. The community, how is it affected?
Yeah, I mean, it's affected, basically everybody. So what I mean by that is there's obviously the people that have lost homes, lost neighborhoods, lost schools. But even like Manhattan Beach, where we live, it was not affected by the fires. But what's happened now, my daughter came home from school the other day. She met two people that had moved into our district, probably about 40 minutes away. But now there's like maybe 40 new students that go to the same high school that Mariah goes to. So it's affected so many people out here. But the really cool thing about LA is everybody's pitching in. Almost every program on our campus has tried to volunteer hours and time to help. But even way beyond that is like what the Clippers have done, and Steve Ballmer, and putting on concerts to raise so much money. It's actually incredible to see a large city like LA rally around each other and try to help people in need. It's almost, it's got like a small town feel, but in a major metropolitan area.
So tell me about the Big Ten. You go into this super conference as being kind, where they add the four teams from the Pac-12, and now you're traveling from Jersey to the West Coast for the teams. You're used to traveling east to west, but not as a pro coach. But what's it like now as a college coach, and for all the athletes, obviously too?
Yeah, but I think, Coach, just from our program, I feel really fortunate that I do have the NBA background, because I'll never forget the Warriors, our first road trip west to east. Ironically, we played in Orlando. Our shoot-around slot was 10 a.m., and I remember Donald Foyle telling me, "Coach, this is really dumb to get us up. Our bodies, are not used to this time. So we're not going to have any early morning stuff on at least until we're into day 3. I met with the LA Rams, asked them what their thought process was when they, leave on a Friday or a Saturday for a Sunday game. And they, their research was telling them it took 3 days to adjust if you go 3 hours. And so what I've done is, much like an NBA team, our practice time, the energy that we exert in practice before trips and after trips has drastically been altered. Much more like an NBA, more film, more mental stuff, less wear and tear on the body. And I also think, too, especially for Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC, we're going to run into stretches like the NBA does. When an NBA team, and you know this, Brendan, for years, when a team loses 4 out of 5, sometimes it has nothing to do with your team. It has to do with the travel and your opponent.
Schedule. Yep.
And that's what I'm finding out. You know, when Coach Cronin, verbally, had his feelings about the schedule, well, we're about to go do that. We're going to Rutgers in Maryland. And I think you've got to really understand that you're going to go through stretches, the 4 of us that have the travel so much, we're going to go through stretches where we lose games, even if our teams play hard. It's just going to happen. And the only way to overcome that is to do what UCLA women have done and what USC women have done. And that's just have a loaded roster where your talent, where your talent is going to supersede the travel.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think? I find it interesting when the teams come out to play you or UCLA, they seem to struggle, which is really like Iowa came out and they stayed, it seemed like 5 days, right? They had you, I think, first, and UCLA just crushed them like 4 days later. Are they enjoying
Michigan
LA?
State.
Yeah, Michigan State
did the same thing.
Yeah. And I don't know if they're just so happy to get out of the freezing cold weather back there. And then they come and they see LA and they say, wow, they've never been there, some kids. But that's a great home court advantage, though. Right now, it seems that way.
It is. What's going on? So all of those teams just come out one time. They have one cross-country trip. We have 3. And so, but what they are doing is they're coming out 2 days early, probably because of the weather. And at first, we thought it was going to be a disadvantage, but you might be right, Coach. It might just be that people get comfortable out here and you get a little distracted. I know even NBA teams, when they go to LA, Miami, you can get a little distracted.
I was just going to say that to you. When we used to go to Miami, there was no shot. There was no shot. And we used to have to make deals with the guys when we'd play in LA. We'd say, okay, stay in tonight. We'll stay overnight so you can go out after the game, right? Things like that, and I'd say, no, we got to go home. And Chuck would say, relax. I got this, relax. I want to go out,
Well, hey, Coach, how about let's do another Chuck Daly story. I remember we were talking about what hotels to stay in on the road for certain cities. And somebody said, well, what about staying out way away from South Beach? And Chuck said, they're all going to South Beach. So we need to stay in the heart of South Beach so they can get home an extra 20 minutes earlier than if we stayed away from South Beach. So another
brilliance.
Way ahead of his time thinking.
Yeah. All right. So tell me about your observations X and O wise in college ball the last couple of years, things that you see offensively and defensively, generalities, not with your team, just in general. Differences.
I think so much of college basketball is like a little bit behind the NBA, and then people try to replicate that. So you're seeing less half-court offense, a little bit more flow, a little bit more secondary break stuff. And then I think when you look at even conferences, SEC, more transition game, Big Ten, more physical, more full court pressure in the SEC. So I think that even geographically, you get a little bit different feel, but to me, the college game, there's so many areas that it can continue to evolve and improve in from a rules standpoint that I think can open up the game even more towards what the NBA is doing.
Great observations there. Defensively, seems like all the games I watch, and probably I'm only down to about 7 or 8 games a day at night watching it, but at college games, seems like preponderance of teams playing man-to-man, very few zones. How about the Big Ten?
Yeah, I would say that that's true. Way more man-to-man, not much zone at all, which is a little bit of a surprise. I thought that, and dating all the way back to Pat Riley with the Lakers and college teams doing it, like there's no real 1-3-1s as much as there used to be. There is a little bit of 2-3 to maybe take a team out of a rhythm, but you don't really see 3-2s. There's really no boxing ones. So yeah, I would agree. Much more, probably 85% man-to-man defense.
Not a lot of pressing either, right?
Not much pressing. Penn State will press in our league. UCLA will full court press, but not, not the old school, Rick Pitino where you're trapping over the ball and that trap of the first pass. You don't see as much of that maybe as you used to.
Hey, what about what would you say about if you were, this is scary, your son might crash, so alert him not to crash. If you were commissioner of college basketball, what changes would you make? Carte blanche, you could do anything you wanted. They gave you 4 or 5 things that you would want to change. Rules of the game, let's say. Rules of the game type of thing.
That would be easy. I have no earthly idea why it hasn't already happened. Number one, 4 quarters. Just like everything else in the world. Women's basketball, 4 quarters. NBA, 4 quarters. FIBA, come on. We need the 4 quarters immediately. Advancing the ball. Stop listening to older coaches that have only been in college and are fearful. They're literally fearful of advancing the ball. Because why? Gets back to what Chuck Daly said. There's so much pressure if you advance the ball just to get the ball in bounds. But there would be so many more close games if we allowed to call a timeout and advance the ball. Those should be non-negotiable. And then I like the FIBA rule. Anybody that's coached in FIBA, ball hits the rim, you can knock it off. I think it adds to the excitement. I thought when they did it in the G League about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I was part of the guinea pig group of doing it, I thought it was phenomenal. Even on free throws, because we would practice knocking the ball off.
How about that?
It added excitement to the game. So those things really, to me, Coach, they shouldn't even be discussed. They just happen.
The other thing I think with college kids, and you and I are both huge college and pro football fan, I do not know why we eliminate kids on 5 fouls in college basketball. The idea is to have kids participate and play and not to have some official take your best player out in the first half with 2 fouls. Let them have 6 fouls, number one. And then the second one, maybe the worst rule I've ever heard in officiating is why we would assess a technical foul as a personal foul. You cannot explain to me why that's a good idea.
Totally agree on both. I mean, especially if it's like every CYO has a star player, high school has a star player, college, like you want to see the star player, if I go watch USC women's, I do not want to see Juju Watkins get in foul trouble. I'm going to the game to watch the beauty and the artwork of her on the floor. Certainly the foul, you don't want to see that. So I would totally agree with you that 6 would make it much more manageable.
So you are famous, I think, for a lot of your pregame talks. Are we still, are we still doing those
We still do them every game.
Yeah.
We might not post them all, but we're doing them all.
Yeah, no, but they are entertainment personified. Where do you get your material for that?
Every day, trying to study, trying to come up with something new. Basically what we try to come up with is a theme, and then how do we intertwine something fun to get them to relax right before they go out. And it really started, Coach, it started in the NCAA tournament when I thought everybody was so uptight, and how do we break the ice and just get them to laugh real quick before they go out and get ready to perform in front of national TV. And obviously all the games right now at the Power 5 level are nationally televised. So, but there should be a rhyme and reason or a theme for them. And, you get them from different sports. Really, you get them from asking other coaches, hey, do you have any good ideas? Do you have any good film clips you've used? This summer we met with the San Jose Sharks, and they gave us some great ideas.
Really?
Yeah, they have a young head coach. He's thirsty to share ideas. He's got great knowledge of being a motivator. So there's always a resource out there if you look far enough.
What are one or two of the most outlandish ones you've ever done?
Outlandish,
or your proudest of, not outlandish, proudest stuff.
I would say the best speech is probably the Halloween speech about being competitive, and how my dad told me that it was a challenge to get more candy than any other person on the street. And then my dad had me dress up in 4 to 5 different costumes so I could go to the same house. And so I've told our players, you got to have that same competitive drive on rebounds, on trying to get steals, on trying to get deflections. You got to be greedy like I was greedy for Halloween.
I like that. That is good. I remember Riley once, when I think he was with the Knicks, he came in with baseball spikes. Did you ever hear that? Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And he slid into the freaking chalkboard, video board, with real spikes on in one of his $5,000 suits, Now, Chuck would never have done anything to injure one of those suits, but Pat did that. And I heard that story. I just laughed. Chuck said, he's got a free deal. It's not a big deal that he's doing that. If he ruins the pants, he's got a free suit coming. Not a big deal. I'm not impressed, Zach has a question for you, Eric, about the portal and your recruiting.
Yeah, well, first I want to kind of stay right here because you touched on some of this. We can all attest on this call. You're always learning. It's honestly one of the more, I guess, impactful things when I was working with you that I was learning. Like, your eyes and ears are always open. And you're constantly taking plays from NBA games that you've watched and were installed on the next day. But honestly, it could come from anywhere, whether it was podcasts or the daily articles, or as you're talking about here with these speeches. One time we're in church, B, and I look over and this man's taking notes for a future pregame talk, so even Mike Heyman's not off limits. It could come from anywhere, but
no, Mike Heyman should be a coach. Yeah,
100%.
Good man.
Hey, Pastor Mike's got a pregame speech basically every Sunday. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Period.
He makes more than us too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, careful. We're getting touchy here.
I told Mike. I told Mike last year exactly when I went down to see him, and I said, Mike, I watch your service on TV. I don't feel worthy enough to come into church. He said, brother, there's a lot more than you. Trust me, it's okay. Go ahead, Zach.
No, for sure. But one of my favorite things that you do each offseason, you spend a lot of time learning from other coaches and other sports, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, but what's your approach going into these visits, and how has some of the things you've learned from these coaches affected your outlook and the processes with your teams?
Yeah, I think number one, when I got let go by Golden State, Mike Lombardi reached out to me and said, "Hey, come hang out with the Raiders," and I did that, and it opened up like a whole new lens to learning. Because basically we structure our practice now much like an NFL team would structure their practice, from the drills, the positional stuff that they do. But then I think about, like, when I was growing up, like, who did I see my dad hang out with? Well, when we moved to San Diego, the first meeting I saw my dad have in our house was with Paul Brown, the great NFL coach and owner. And I saw those two talk about my dad's first team meeting in the ABA, because my dad was going from being a college coach to a pro coach, and he wanted to know what type of message and how a pro player would perceive a college coach going to the pro level. I saw my dad hang out with Billy Martin, the former New York Yankee manager. So I saw my dad kind of doing that, but it really hit home when Michael Lombardi opened up the doors to me to hang out at the Raiders. And now of late, just the relationships with a lot of Major League Baseball managers. And I know that like Brendan has been friends with guys like Tony La Russa for many years. And I know like Bobby Knight, Tony La Russa were good friends and exchanged ideas. So for me, it's every time I have free time and a baseball team comes in, because baseball managers have a little bit more time than other sports because of the number of games and because they get to the ballpark at noon and they don't play till 7:00. And they're super willing to open the doors, share things. And so I've learned so much, whether it's from Bruce Bochy, Phil Nevin, guys that have allowed me to hang out with them, for a couple hours, and you can talk about media stuff. Tito, who's now the manager of the Cincinnati Reds, when he was with Cleveland, I mean, we talked about how to manage personalities of young players, because when he was with the Cleveland Guardians, they had a young team. We had, 3 one-and-dones the 1 year at Arkansas. So I wanted to meet with Tito on how he was developing his young team and how you need to have patience with young players. So I love to learn from other sports. I think sometimes we talk to people in our own sport and they're too guarded, or, like to meet with an NBA guy, like we're probably doing much of the same thing, but to meet with a baseball manager, they might have something so far outside the box that we can incorporate with our own program that is super, super impactful and powerful.
Hey, where do you get the growth mindset that you have? Did it come naturally, or what do you think?
I don't really know. I watched my mom read a lot. And so I think that was one thing, because I get on the treadmill every day. Now I go 6 miles, which takes about, 65 to 80 minutes, depending on if I'm running or jogging or walking. But I want to read the entire time that I'm on the treadmill. And for me, I get super frustrated if I'm not learning something, whether it's through reading or staff. Like if we're in a staff meeting and somebody can't bring me something that I've never heard before or a new idea, kind of like I just want to learn every single day. Whether it's a new play, whether it's a new concept offensively or defensively, whether it's a new pregame speech. Again, remember, Brendan, how Chuck used to talk about how many meetings we have with our team? Every timeout was a meeting. Pregame was a meeting. Halftime was a meeting. So for me, I want to have a different creative message every time we have a meeting. So how do you do that? You gotta actively search it out.
2,800 meetings a year in the NBA. Yep. But the difference between that and the corporate world, our meetings go between 30 seconds and 3 minutes during the game.
And they're public.
And 20,000 people are saying, this son of a bitch can't coach. Look at the team. And meanwhile, they have a 2-hour meeting, and the only thing I always say about the corporate folks is, I've sat in those meetings, is I said the only thing that they decide is when the next effing meeting is going to be. Nothing is decided, where you have to put in your strategy, change personnel, motivate. All that stuff has to happen in 1 to 2 minutes. It's an incredible job of being able to communicate,
And to have a TV camera in there. And now you've got the boom mics. And so you're open to criticism. I'd love to stick a microphone, a TV camera in an IBM meeting and have, millions of people critique the meeting.
I love that. Zach, anything else on the recruiting or the portal? Or anything?
Yeah, no, you touched on the portal earlier. Mush, you kind of changed the game when you were at Nevada with your approach to just building through the portal, and then at the time there was the sit-out year that was in place where you really had a lot more time to develop those guys. And then you turn around and win 25 games with them the following year, and make a deep run in the tournament. So that worked out well. But you continued that success when you went to Arkansas. but then everybody sees it and, they see what you're doing and they try to do the model, but they haven't been, I'm not going to say everybody, obviously a lot of people have, but it doesn't feel like it's a one size fits all approach to where they've been able to have the same success consistently that you had. And there's probably several reasons for that, but can you take us inside like the way you and your staff do it and explain your evaluation process and how you've been able to hit on more guys than you've missed in the long run?
Yeah, I think, one, Zach, I think we had the most success when we did have a sit out because we could, when the sit out rule was in place, because we could really teach and develop. And the development piece was a huge part of why we decided to go into the portal to begin with. And then I love the fact that if you had those guys sitting out, you had a smaller player rotation so you could keep your locker room happy. So for the 4 years at Nevada, all 4 years, every player had to sit out. So if I had a philosophy or a template that I wanted 4 sit-out players every year, well, now I only got 8 or 9 guys that are on my active roster that I have to worry about minutes. That now changed, and it's affected. And we've learned that you can't have, 12 transfers that all are coming in at the same time. And I do think that moving forward, you're going to have more up and down. It's going to be really hard to be consistent through the portal. And I think we found that at Arkansas last year. We had a lot of, turnover, and we didn't have as good a year as we hoped, even with what we think we evaluate at a pretty good rate. We think our hit rate's really good. We feel like we have a system in place to recruit the portal, and it starts with a statistical analysis from the conference they come from, how that player from that conference could potentially fit in our conference, and then there's obviously there's a formula that you have to have with what your actual needs are for your team, and then how those pieces fit. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I do think having a pro background helps when you have to rebuild your team year after year. And I especially think a minor league background can really, really help because, as Brendan knows, it was constant turnover and then a constant adaptability on the fly.
And when we were both in the CBA, I had no idea about 99% of these guys. You knew every player in the world. And I said, oh boy, this is not good for me. It was, but you learn there or you don't survive. And Eric, I think you and I shared the same philosophy that the way you do it, and I believe in doing it, as from our evaluation standpoint, all players on the draft board, so to speak, or the recruiting board are not the same. And I don't care if they're ranked 1 through 10 like we do in the pro. There's got to be the best. You have to have them ranked based on need and also on degree. I remember I'm not sure if you were at Arkansas or you're still at Nevada, where you basically were using a lottery. That guy's a lottery pick. That's a high first rounder. That's a late first rounder. That's a second rounder. Then you had free agent, which were the transfers, and stuff. Now everyone's a free agent almost, but explain a little bit of that, the mentality that went into that. You don't have to share your actual thing, but the mentality that you used because it was something that was so comfortable to you, right?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, Coach, is it was comfortable, the terminology of like maybe a 5-star equated to a lottery pick.
Yep.
And maybe a late first rounder was a player ranked 30 to 50. So I wanted the staff to adapt our terminology that I felt comfortable with, meaning, hey, is this guy a two-way player? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, what I mean by that is he's a 10th man. Can we plug and play him? Will he accept not getting minutes? Will he accept not a heavy role? So we tried to adapt the NBA terminology, and we still use that, because I think at the Power 5 level, in reality, it's not that much different than the NBA. You got to have 2 stars. And by that, I think if you want to make Sweet 16s, you probably need 2 guys that are pro players. you probably need 2 guys that are G League guys. Otherwise, it's really hard to win, at a high level and advance in the tournament.
What about, now we have the fifth-year players, and some of the teams with some of the most success in the SEC are the very old teams. Like Auburn's the oldest team, I think, in the country. I think just about. I think they're like 23.8 years of age. Ole Miss, 23 plus years of age. Kentucky's got like 7 guys, that are all older, and I think they're having the most success. Your thoughts on that for college?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start recruiting, young freshmen, that's a big discrepancy in age. There's a player in the Big Ten that's on his 8th year in college basketball. And, to me, that's really hard for a freshman to contribute. And I still look at college as it should be somewhat a developmental, meaning, you're taking a younger player and you're growing his game.
Sure.
With the COVID stuff now being eliminated with the class, I think it'll bring it a little bit more back to normalcy. But the other thing that's going on now is guys don't want to leave college because of name, image, and likeness. And not sure how it got this way, but we are way paying more than what a G League player makes. And it's even now approaching where we're paying more than every second-round pick would make. And it's not there yet, but hopefully it doesn't get to the point where you're paying more than what a guy can get as a late first-rounder, because that's when the system's really out of whack.
Yeah. Boy, that's amazing. Well, I know you're out looking for players tonight, so I appreciate so much your time. Zach and I appreciate this. It's always a treat when you share with us, man. You're one of the most enjoyable people that we know and love. So thank you so much. Appreciate you so much, E.
Appreciate you having me on, Brendan. Zach, always great to catch up, and love you a lot, Coach Suhr.
Hey, we're gonna come out and see you in L.A., brother.
Come on, I got room in the house in Manhattan Beach.
Oh, that's tempting. That's
be
tempting.
Careful. Be gonna be hanging out by the pool the next morning. Be careful.
Thanks again, the great Eric Musselman. Thank you, E. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.